Hello, my name is Chelsea Zimmerman, and I am going to go over the CREACH Standard Joint Productive Activity. As you can see, there's a small group in the center of the page, which is how you start the joint productive activity. You have to start off, I would go 3 to 5 people to a group in order to get the best out of the whole activity. A teacher needs to separate the classroom into 3 or 5 people per group, and then the teacher does have to work hand in hand with the students in order to reach a common goal. While you're working with your students, you could give the other groups a little assignment or a review or something to do while you're working with that select group. Alright, another thing is, in these small groups, each teacher needs to make sure that everyone is working together and doing the same amount of work and doing everything the same and working together rather than one student pulling all the weight for everyone. Every student should be doing the same amount of work, no matter what. And the teacher will be in there helping push the students to move on or do things or push on one way or the other. But the majority should be the students doing the activity. These last two are the joint part of the word, the joint productive activity. It's joint because everyone is working together in order to make a common goal, which is the productive. So everyone works together to get to a goal, which is the productive part of the word. You will either have a tangible result or intangible result where everyone is understanding and yeah. But this thing helps in many different ways. Using the standard, the teacher will get more one-on-one diagnosis of where the student is and where each of them are at on the subject, and you'll be able to figure out if one student is struggling, and also you will be able to help that student more in a smaller environment than if it was the whole class and being thrown into the wolves and having to help everyone at one time. You'll have a more smaller, unique group that you can work with them one-on-one on what their needs are. The students will also be more involved in this activity, and it will encourage interaction between the students and between you and the students. This will help you have connections and help the students with disabilities or anything, like if they don't understand the topic, to be able to relate with one another, and it will encourage the bonding and joint activity of all the students together. This is a main point because many people struggle with working with their peers or talking to their peers, while this standard will help push those students into working together and for a common goal. And it might be difficult for some students to do one thing, but other people might be excelling in that group, in that thing. So they can work together to make a goal, and it shows that students working together and teamwork will help them pass the class. Okay. Now, for the standards to work, first of all, as I said, you have to have small groups. You can't have a whole classroom because you can't focus on each student and have them interact together. You'll just have madness, because friends will click together and then other friends will click together, and you'll have small groups in the end. But the thing is if you do it in a whole group environment, it will get too complicated and you won't actually be able to interact as well as if the students are in smaller groups, as we see. Another thing that's important is there has to be a goal. There can't just be this activity that they're doing with no goal, or it can be intangible. It could be tangible. It doesn't matter. It just needs to have a goal for each activity. They can't be doing an activity that there's no end point or no point in, because there's no point and they won't get anything out of it in the long run. But another thing is you have to help the students get to their common goal. This is a big thing nowadays. If the teacher wasn't in the small group, it may be harder for some students to get to where they need to be. And so the teacher helping and being in the small groups is a vital part of the whole thing. I think the main point of this whole thing is to encourage the group activity and the working together with your other peers, because a lot of people struggle with social interaction nowadays with cell phones and everything. It's not just those who need extra help or have a disability that struggle with this. It's more or less everyone would probably benefit from doing an activity that has it, and making everyone do their work is a big thing. Nowadays people cut corners and they'll have someone else do their homework or their sheet. So I think this is a great way to make sure that everyone's pulling their own part and are understanding the concepts to the best of their ability. That's why small groups probably work best, is because they're able to work together and they all have to do their parts because you're there watching them do step by step, and they all have their own individual parts to play. Alright, so this video that is shown, I'll start, and it's about, I think it's 3 to 5 year olds that are making pumpkin soup in a class environment together.
There's lots, and we have all this pumpkin to go still too. All this has to go.
How about you, Auntie, and
I have to peel them still.
As you can see, the teacher is helping the students get to a common goal. They are making pumpkin soup while every one of them is working together, but this teacher initially starts the whole thing by peeling the pumpkins, and then the students, as the video goes along, the students will throw, one of them is throwing pumpkins into the soup, while later on in the video there will be a student mixing the soup, but they're sharing and they're working together in order to all be involved in the project. As you can see, now the other student is throwing the pumpkin in. The interaction between the students is sharing, and they're all working together, which is amazing and a good point that needs to get across to everyone in this activity. They all have their individual tasks, but you see how they're sharing, they're all doing their part. While the teacher is working, she just told another student to get back to doing something else. So she does have an activity for the other students, which it can be hard to have that many activities going on in order to watch the students. So sometimes other adults or people watch the other groups of students, but you can see through this video that all the students are working together with the teacher as the main person in order to reach a common goal, which in the end they will have pumpkin soup. So that is their common goal, and they're working together or jointly, and they're productive because in the end they will have pumpkin soup. Alright, so I created an activity example of joint productive activity. So I'm going to be a math teacher, so what I would do is get groups of 3 to 5 people in each group, and I would give everyone else an assignment or a review over graphs while I work with each group. The first group I'd work with, depending on where their level of intelligence is, I would talk to them, and they would be focusing on making a bar graph together. They first need to collect the data, so they'd go around asking everyone either their favorite pie, their favorite ice cream, something to that extent. And then they would use that information to make the bar graph. But instead of having just one person go gather the information, I'd have the whole group go together, and then I'd have the whole group work together with my help to make a bar graph. They'd have to make sure they had a title, they'd have to make sure they had the scales labeled, they'd have to see where they scale it, if they're going to scale it by 5s, 10s, what. Then they'd move on to the pie graph, and they use the same information from the first activity of gathering the information, and then make a pie graph out of it. And then they could make a dot graph and all the different graphs together, but they'd be working together with my help in order to reach a common goal. And then in the end, they'd have pretty much a poster board of graphs that they can present to the students. And then I'd go to the next group and the next group and the next group in order to make sure that all the students are reaching where they're supposed to and working together and interacting and understanding the material. Alright, so this is my resources that I did use. I mainly used off the website that was given. I used a PDF file I found and the video and some sample activities that I found. So, thank you. Hope this helped.